Hi everyone! Today we'll be talking about one of my favorite artists, as you may be able to tell by the shirt. We're talking Marvin Gaye. Now I've had the pleasure of listening to his discography all week to come up with the cream of the crop. I'm calling this, undeniably, the top 10 best Marvin Gaye songs. And for a little bit of fun, I'll have my pick for an overrated song at the end. But in the meantime, let's get to the top 10. At number 10, we have Trouble Man from the soundtrack of the same name. Following the smash successes of soundtracks by Isaac Hayes for Shaft and Curtis Mayfield for Superfly, Motown wanted to get into the film business too and acquired the film rights to the movie Trouble Man. They offered the chance to do the soundtrack to the new $1 Million Man, Marvin Gaye, fresh off the success of What's Going On. He jumped at the chance to do something that wouldn't have to be burdened by the expectations of that landmark LP. The Trouble Man was the main character in the movie, but the name could have been used to describe Marvin. He was the victim of child abuse at the hands of his father, a devout minister, and he had 2 tumultuous marriages, punctuated by depression, cocaine addiction, and several suicide attempts. Music was his place of solace. On Trouble Man, he plays piano, drums, all the vocals, and he self-produces as well. The song is jazzy and hypnotic. It has no real chorus. He scats alongside the cinematic, swinging orchestra. His statement is clearly spelled out. There's only 3 things, that's for sure. Taxes, death, and trouble. He's ostensibly singing about Mr. T, but it can't help but feel autobiographical. The score and title track is cool and collected. At number 9, we have Anger from Here My Dear. Marvin's first wife, Anna Gordy, would be the inspiration of many songs throughout his career. One of his earliest hits, Pride and Joy, was written about her, but their marriage was very volatile. Anna was the sister of Berry Gordy, the head of Motown, and was 17 years older. At first, she was abusive toward her younger husband, but as he grew more successful, he returned the vitriol. It grew toxic, and both accused each other of infidelity. Anna sued for divorce, and after contentious proceedings, the lawyers advised Marvin to give Anna the majority of proceeds from his next album. Furious, he originally planned to do a tossed-off album as a final payback, but as he started recording, he felt an obligation to his fans, so he poured all his passion and emotions into Here My Dear. The album is an unflinchingly honest look at a relationship gone bad, reality TV before it was a thing. It could be best summed up by the song title, When Did I Stop Loving You? When Did You Stop Loving Me? Marvin lets out his dirty laundry over Heavy Soul. Anger was the second single, and full of, well, anger. Marvin sings out his rage over funky clavinet and a crisp hi-hat groove. The song and album were critical and commercial failures, but they offer a fascinating glimpse into Marvin's mind, and Anger is red hot. At number 8, we have Got to Give It Up from Live at the London Palladium. Marvin detested touring and playing live. During some of his most successful years, he seldomly performed. But you wouldn't know it by going to his concerts. He would give it his all on stage, arguably being better in the flesh than on his timeless studio recordings. Live at the London Palladium was recorded in 1976, and is a dazzling powerhouse performance. Despite the huge arena, it still has an intimate feel. Got to Give It Up, though, was a studio jam tacked on to the live album. Marvin invited his friends to give it a lively, party atmosphere. He called the song a parody of disco. Motown had been trying to convince him to do a disco album, and after Diana Ross had a big disco hit, Marvin finally relented. Got to Give It Up is a stone-cold vamp that goes on for 12 minutes straight, cut down to a modest 4 for radio. Its minimalist funk stretches out over bass synthesizers, fly falsetto, and an unstoppable in-the-pocket groove. It was a huge dance hit, and such a jam that Pharrell would crib from it decades later. You could judge whether it's truly disco, but there's no denying that it's the danciest Marvin Gaye party. At number 7, we have Mercy Mercy Me, the Ecology, from What's Going On. After the surprise success of What's Going On as a single, Berry Gordy gave Marvin an ultimatum. You could record the album you want, but it had to be completed by 30 days before the end of the month. Marvin took the deal, effectively becoming the first Motown artist to be able to produce his own recordings. It only took him 10 days to record the rest of the LP. During the sessions, Marvin asked engineer Kenneth Sands to bring him the 2 best vocal takes. On accident, Sands would mix the takes together. Marvin loved the sound, and this mishap would forever change his recordings. The dense, multi-layered vocals with singing in different harmonies and ranges would be the trademark of his classic streak. Mercy Mercy Me was the second single from What's Going On, and one of the first message songs warning about humanity's environmental impact. Over a swaying rhythm, Marvin laments, "Oil wasted on the oceans upon our seas, fish full of mercury." The melody is lovely, with Marvin playing both piano and mellotron, its distinctive woodblock beat, and chiming bells. It has heavy thoughts on its mind that are sadly still poignant, but its easygoing feel makes it endlessly replayable. At number 6, we have I Heard It Through the Grapevine from In the Groove. Marvin Gaye would start singing at church at only 4 years old, and his love for music only grew from there. In his teens, he would sing in glee clubs and doo-wop groups. After a time working as a session drummer, Berry Gordy, the head of Motown, would hear Marvin sing at a party and would sign him to Motown's sister label, Tamla. Originally, Marvin saw himself as a jazz singer, not an R&B performer. But as he got more exposed to the developing Hitsville, USA sound and songwriting staff, he would be among those to create indelible pop classics. He would co-write his early hits, Pride and Joy and Hitchhike, and he also co-wrote the huge hit Dancing in the Street for Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. He would be known as the Prince of Motown, and his voice would shape the label, and he would have many great hits in the 60s. I Heard It Through the Grapevine is the best of them. Producer Norman Whitfield wanted Marvin to sing in a key higher than his normal range, so his voice is rough and raspy. It's a dynamic foil to the sweet, angelic backup vocals by the Andantes. His lead vocal is emotional, and you could hear the anguish over this doomed relationship, along with the Funk Brothers holding it down as the band, and the Detroit Symphony Orchestra adding some dramatic heft. It would be one of Motown's biggest hits. Many would cover the song, but no one could match Marvin Gaye's performance. At number 5, we have Let's Get It On from the album of the same name. After the artistic and creative triumph of What's Going On, Marvin Gaye renegotiated his contract, and it would give him complete creative control, along with a cool $1 million, worth roughly $7 million today. He would become the highest earning black artist, and with the ink still drying, he went off to work on his new sessions. He didn't want to make another What's Going On, so he shifted from the politically, socially conscious concerns to the sexual revolution for Let's Get It On. Growing up in a strict religious household, sex and desire were taboo, so the idea of sexual healing spoke to his wounded soul. Not just two people making love, but doing so on a spiritual level as well. Believe it or not, the horny, so on the nose it borders on parody title track was originally a religious ballad that was rewritten into a baby-making staple. The wah guitar is almost cartoonishly sexy, foreplay on electric guitar, and the rhythm is slowed down for the intimate love-in. Marvin gives one of his best performances. The multi-track vocals is like a menage a trois of Marvin Gaye, singing both his harmonies and backups. Every coo, every moan weaves together with sultry strings and sensual saxophone to make the sexiest tapestry ever put on tape. It's smooth, sweaty, and full of soul. At number 4, we have Ain't No Mountain High Enough from United. So far in my artist rankings, I haven't included any duets, but I wouldn't be telling the whole Marvin Gaye story if I didn't include one of his classics. He had hits with Mary Wells, and an even bigger one with It Takes Two alongside Kim Weston. But nothing could match the irrefutable chemistry he had with Tammy Terrell. Terrell would start her career singing backup for James Brown until she was eventually signed by Berry Gordy to Motown. On Ain't No Mountain High Enough, they strangely recorded separate versions before the label mixed the vocals together and edited out the backups. The duo's alchemy and the song's power were huge successes, and they would record other stunning numbers like You're All I Need to Get By and Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing. While Gaye had stage fright, Terrell was a natural performer and was a huge inspiration to Marvin. Tragedy would strike when the duo was performing live, when Terrell fainted into Gaye's arms. She would be rushed to the hospital, where she was diagnosed with a malignant tumor in her brain. Sadly, her illness would progress and get worse, and she would pass away within 3 years. It would greatly affect Marvin. Ain't No Mountain High Enough is a soaring ballad, with both vocals clear and powerful. They're such professionals you wouldn't even know that they didn't record it in the same room. Of all of Marvin's duets, this is his best. At number 3, we have What's Going On from the album of the same name. In hindsight, What's Going On is a passionate, stirring, timeless work of art. But it wasn't always so evident, at least not to the head of Motown, Berry Gordy. The song's origins trace back to the Four Tops and their bass singer, Obie Benson. While on tour, he witnessed a brutal skirmish between police and anti-war activists. With questions fresh on his mind, he wrote the song along with songwriter Al Cleveland. But when he brought it to the Four Tops, they turned it down, not wanting to do a protest song. Benson then brought the untitled song to Marvin Gaye, who wanted to do a protest song after speaking with his brother, who had recently returned from the Vietnam War. Gaye added lyrics and tweaked the melody, and then would go on to sing and produce a no-doubt masterpiece, Unless You're Berry Gordy. Upon hearing it, he turned down releasing it. Gaye then refused to record any new music. It would take a Motown A&R man gone rogue to press the single behind Gordy's back. It took off, making Gordy look like a fool and making Marvin Gaye into an icon. The mournful tone sees the death of the idealistic 60s and asks where the soul of the nation has gone. Even with the heavy topics, the song is upbeat and hopeful. Congas drive the rhythm, along with James Jamerson's flowing, bubbling bass lines. Marvin's vocals ache, bringing his gospel roots to transform soul music, searching not for God, but for answers for our shared humanity. It's a question always worth asking. Its lyrics are poignant, its vocals are sublime, and the music is truly transcendent. At number 2, we have I Want You from the album of the same name. During the recording sessions of Let's Get It On, Marvin would meet his new flame and future second wife, Janice Hunter, half of Marvin's age at 17 years old. Not sure it was a great look then either. Some unconfirmed stories have her in the studio while he was in the vocal booth for that title track. But what is clear is I Want You is a carnal, visceral, tantric album that's dedicated to their torrid, tempestuous romance. Its sensual jazz funk is ideal for late nights when the lights are dim. It's so horny, there's even erotic, orgasmic moaning. The title track, I Want You, kicks off the album. Over seductive light disco, Marvin professes his affection and desire and longs for the same in return. I want you the right way. I want you, but I want you to want me too. His multi-layered vocals paint the arrangement with the smoothest falsetto ever heard, along with his intense tenor. The lush strings lure you in to this forbidden affair. A jazzy, quiet storm, with bopping congas, a thumping bass line, and a scorching guitar from Ray Parker Jr. Yes, the guy who wrote Ghostbusters. He absolutely kills it. Its intimacy is immediate, and the grooves are so hypnotic to almost be a narcotic by themselves. It's so damn good, they bring it back for a reprise. With I Want You, Don't Fight It, Give In to the Temptation. Number 1, we have Inner City Blues, Make Me Wanna Holler, from What's Going On. What's Going On is arguably the first and best concept album in soul music. Gaye envisioned a story of a Vietnam War veteran returning home from the war, only to see the country he fought for fighting itself and in decay. Inflation, starvation, injustice, hypocrisy, he had seen too much pain, and with his brother giving him a first-hand account, it really hit close to home. It flows like a song cycle. Instead of clean breaks, songs merge into one another. It's like a soulful symphony with several movements. Given full creative control, Marvin pushed the boundaries of what Motown and soul albums could sound like, incorporating studio mishaps and session goofs masterfully, flying blind with conviction. Inner City Blues, Make Me Wanna Holler, closes out the masterwork. Instead of James Jamerson on bass, like the majority of the sessions, Funk Brothers associate Bob Babbitt is on the low end, and he provides deft, hard bass lines. The song's sparse funk rides mainly with bass and congas, punctuated by Marvin's piano, playing heavy whole notes. Marvin's vocals are bold and indignant, speaking truths as relevant then as they are now. It's righteous funk, made to nod along to and open up your mind. It ends with a short reprise of the title track, bringing some light to guide you out of the darkness. It closes out one of the best albums ever made. It's his absolute best. Now, I'd like to share 2 songs that almost made the list. The first is Distant Lover from Let's Get It On. It's a dreamy fan favorite that was such a showstopper that it was later released as a single from his 1974 live album, complete with female fans losing it. It's a steamy, yearning, heartbroken burner, and another great composition for Marvin to show off his divine vocals. The other near miss is a funky space reincarnation from Here My Dear. It's got to give it up if it went interplanetary. It's an epic funk workout, definitely inspired by P-Funk's sci-fi explorations. Over an insistent groove, Marvin jives about smoking space weed from Venus and getting down on the moon. It's one of the most out there jams for Marvin Gaye, and definitely worth the trip. Finally, it's time to talk about what I think is the most overrated song by Marvin Gaye, and that's arguably his biggest hit, Sexual Healing from Midnight Love. First, to be clear, overrated does not make it bad. Its stature is just overrated. His Grammy win for the song for Best R&B Male Vocal Performance is well deserved. He sounds fantastic, but if anything, it's long overdue. If he's not the best male vocalist of all time, he's at least in the Mount Rushmore alongside Al Green. The production is painfully artificial. New age alien guitar echoes with thin Casio beats. His vocals are resurgent, but the song isn't better than any of his 71 to 76 streak. It's a high bar, I know, but we're talking Marvin Gaye here. He set it himself with his genius. The song starts, I'm hot just like an oven, I need some lovin'. His delivery almost sells it, but come on, that's corny. It's tied up in our minds with a great story about Marvin's comeback from depression, temporarily sobering up, and breaking up with the jilted lover that was Motown. Not to mention, it was his last major hit before his tragic death. As a song, its digital sheen leaves me cold. There are so many great Marvin Gaye songs that don't quite get the due that Sexual Healing does. To me, it's his most overrated. As you're still watching, I wanted to share a deep cut as well. And for that, I'm shining a light on You're the Man. You're the Man was originally supposed to be the lead single to the album that would follow What's Going On. It was even more fiery and political, with Marvin speaking pointedly to George McGovern and asking him if he could right all the wrongs of the Nixon administration. Berry Gordy didn't like politics with his music, and Marvin claimed they didn't promote it. When the single stalled, the whole album ended up shelved. They would quote-unquote release the album under the same title in 2019, after his death. But I can't help but think that if Marvin put his whole heart into it, it would have been another masterpiece. It was slept on then, and it still slaps. Check it out. So there you have it. That was undeniably the top 10 best Marvin Gaye songs. So, how wrong was I? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What's your top 3? Do you think that Sexual Healing is his best song? Let me know. And if there's any artists you'd like to see me rank, let me know in the comments below. Hope you stick around, and thank you for watching. Leapt. Leaped?
Just leapt is right.
Dang. Just like, leapt? Yeah. Were the soundtrack of his walk. The Trouble Man was but the feel, but can't help but feel. Yeah.
Feel, can't but feel.
It grew quite toxic. Trying to
figure out a word to say.
Way that said the same thing. Yeah, I just couldn't do it in real time. Marvin effectively, the dense multi-levered with Martin. Who's Martin?
Martin.
Its heavy thoughts weigh heavy. Not Narby. Wanted Marvin to ring. No. Where she was smoothest boat. And the grooves are not heartbroken. Sci-fly. Still saying that. And Hanger is red hot.
Hanger?
Yeah, I felt like I said hanger. I think he got angry. Anger.
It didn't even matter about the divorce. He was just like, I'm so angry.